Put up your hand. There's a place here where you can put up your hand there, that little thingy that can make you to your hand to go up. Okay, so while I'm waiting for my technical support, I'm going to get started with just enthusing you all. Okay, so you are being trained as HIC practitioners, and that means you are there to interpret the hardwire. So today I'm going to take us to more to how we're going to talk to the person that we are interpreting to, and the type of things we're going to say to the person we're interpreting to. Okay, so the first thing that we need to know is that we have to be the change we want to see in the world. So that is why you can't start interpreting other people's hardwires if you are not on this journey of rewiring your own mind yourself. Okay, so I'm hoping that you are all busy doing your hardwire assessments and that you go through some coaching session with somebody that will do that online with you, and that you will feel what it feels like when somebody coaches you. Okay, so that it is quite a crazy experience, because most people don't even know that they are having hardwires. They don't even know that it exists. They don't even know what it is. And now suddenly we're telling you that you've got 16 hardwires in your mind, and you know, what's these hardwires, and you know, what exactly is it? Because we basically are unconscious of the depth of this. So we're actually in a state of unconsciousness of the depth of the inner workings of the self, of the human. Okay, so and this tool, as I said, is a tool. It's just one tool. It's not the end all. We can come up with many more ways to crack a human into consciousness of self. So I call this tool a kick tool. So it's you're doing the hick so that you can actually get humans to kick, which is cracking into consciousness. Okay, so cracking into consciousness, it's a very harsh word, and you guys are going to tell me many times, oh, why are you using such harsh word? Why don't we become softer on human beings? Because what we are doing is serious stuff. We would have changed humans. People wouldn't have been in the streets. Humans wouldn't have been in prisons and been disempowered. And the community development field and the field of empowering humans wouldn't have been there if they could have. They would have if they could have. So humans are struggling to understand this whole thing of the inner workings of the mind and of the brain and the mind and the spirit combination. They don't really know that. So these tools that we're coming up with is really for the modern times. We've had enough. We've been enough. I've been for 27 damn years in the field of human development and human empowerment and community and everything that you can think of in many countries in Africa. And I can tell you, to just be nice is not going to do it. When a person had childhood hurt and went through his primary hardwiring period, then he grows up into an adult full of hardwires, and then it's 10 times more difficult to change that human. So we are struggling with the understanding of the inner business of the brain. So the cracking into consciousness is the first thing that needs to happen before you can start any journey of change, before you can train. I'm always saying, I think amongst our midst today, there's a Professor Slappert. Put up your hand if you are in our midst, Profi. Are you here? That's it. Thank you for coming. Now he has been on our A to B board in the Gauteng region many moons ago, and we're always looking at the Department of Education, and we're always saying to ourselves, you know, the way the people are training or teaching is a quick fix transferring of knowledge. in a very short period of time, because most of the times people, 40 minutes and then they go to the next classes. So that poor human that is having to learn doesn't even have time to crack into consciousness of self. They just have to take in knowledge. And what we are saying in the whole science of occupational intelligence development is that you have to first get a human to crack into consciousness. So if you are not conscious of self, then you are actually taking in information and the challenges and things that come your way in a hardwired way. So the learning, if you want to optimize learning and if you optimize development or anything, some of you are technical trainers, some of you are whatever way you're working with a human, if the human doesn't crack into consciousness of self and doesn't have a deep self-awareness, they actually are learning through their hardwires and they don't actually get to sustainable integrative change or learning. Learning and change is basically the same thing, because if you learn something, you're going to change your behavior and you're going to have skills and new ways of doing things. So the first thing that has to happen before any learning or any training or any program or anything can happen is to crack a human into consciousness. So that is the missing link. That is what's wrong with our world. Humans don't know who they are. They don't know out of what hardwires they respond. And therefore they are just thinking it's their personality. And that's the problem we're having. So you are the first ones that need to crack into your own consciousness deeper and deeper and deeper. And like I'm telling you, it's a lifelong journey. It's a total lifelong journey, because every time you find yourself in new circumstances or in new ecosystems, then that circumstances can actually now hardwire you again. Unless you know about hardwires, then nothing can hurt you and nothing can disempower you and put you into all sorts of little coping mechanisms that's warped without your own consent. But the biggest part of this is to understand the primary level of things. And in our previous session, we were looking at the primary hardwires. So we first dealt with the nurture hardwires, and that was the parenting. So we went through the process of understanding that if parenting is not a total stimulating parenting style that gives children challenges and that says, hey man, you can do it, come, let's go for it, and we do this and we do this and we help make food and we camp in the nature and we do I mean, if a child is not constantly in that first formation is stimulated in the both sides of the brain, that child is actually been going through a wastage of that first years, and the first years are the most important. So we have only a certain amount of years. One of my staff, she came back from maternity leave. I said, where's the baby? She says, no, May, the baby has now got a babysitter. I said, what? Do you think I can ever look you in your eye while every day I know that you are disempowering your baby because you dumped it somewhere in the hands of a babysitter that has got absolutely no clue how to stimulate that child, whilst in the first 7 years it's the most critical neural pathway network foundational years that fundamentally has to be done by the parents, because the parents, especially the mother, is giving the happy hormone oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, which is the beginning of empathy development, which is the love hormone. And that's why a child has to breastfeed for at least 9 to 12 months, because that child is, every time you touch and hold that child, if you hold somebody, come on, Dikopo, we love each other. If we hold each other for 2 minutes, then we secrete oxytocin. Didn't you know that? I mean, that's a fundamental thing of humanness. If we don't understand the physical touch part of I feel safe, I'm okay, you're okay, in a small little baby phase, then we have already disadvantage our own children, and that is where the unconducive parenting starts. How could we even dare to do something like that to a little vulnerable newborn baby? So unconducive parenting is fundamentally the biggest disempowerment factor and reason for all the hardwires that's going to form in the human and build his bad self-esteem and his bad sense of self. that is the foundation. And then we were talking then after that about abuse. That was the other nurture hardwire that is coming from nurture. 50% is nurture, so the unconducive parenting and abuse. And abuse is always, well, in, let's say, at least 90% cases, it is direct or indirect responsible. The parents are responsible because of the lack of boundaries, the lack of caring for that neurological development of that child, and allowing that child to be exposed to elements like the nanny or the whatever that is, and or dumping the child in some ECD, and the parent has chosen to do that. So that choice is making the parent to still be the responsible reason for that disempowerment that's going to come in the hardwiring process. So we spoke about nurture. Now, then we spoke about nature. We spoke about the Z and the ZOR of the brain. Now, I'm still waiting for my assistants to put the PowerPoint presentation on. So by the way, can you please pinch whoever is not doing that for me at the other side? I'm too far in Lesotho to do that. So we spoke about Z and ZOR. So the Z and the ZOR is the dominance that you inherited in terms of your two-dimensional dominance. That's called the Z, and that is your analytical side of things. And then the ZOR being your 3- and 4-dimensional dominance that has got to do with human relationships and empathy and all the emotional intelligence and all the innovation, all the creative ability, all the strategic things, and then the spiritual side of things that goes into that 4th-dimensional intelligence that we have. And that whole combination is supposed to be whole. It's supposed to be at least equal in the beginning, and then the ZOR should take over, because the ZOR is helping us to stay in that happiness, well-being state, and to always solve a problem, and to always get to a new solution, and to always form relationships with people and things, so that you're never alone in this world. You never have to just zoom in and see the little small picture, but you can go eventually get into bigger and bigger pictures, which is involving more humans and more relationships. And then eventually you can become a Virgin Active, Mr. Richard Branson, that eventually can set up a big initiatives, Virgin Actives all over the world, because he is resourceful enough to involve and to select people and to make the people happy with, and he's just driving his ideas. And then as you are evolving from that level, you evolve into that Mahatma Gandhi type of level human, that is what we call the B3, that doesn't care anymore about the ego, they don't care about the money, they care about the bigger picture, and they care about I am because we are, the real Ubuntu, the real thing that makes the world a better place, but that innovates and that's contributing, that's making you the most adaptive, most contributive, most responsive human that there is on this earth. Okay, and where you are really doing the thing that is needed for the day. That is another thing I want to add to our conversation. It's the more you become conscious, the more all parts of your brain works. You are so conscious of everything, and your wisdom just gets bigger and bigger. You do the thing right, which is the 2-dimensional side, according to the rules and the regulations and the safety and the security and the norms and the standards and the whatever, which is the 2-dimensional side. But that is always got to fit in to the bigger picture of things that eventually support it, so that it drives the other thing that is called doing the right thing. And doing the right thing is to be able to see everything, to consider everything, to have full perspective of everything before you make a choice. And that combination, if once all those areas of the Z and the ZOR is opened up, and the hardwires are not blocking that anymore, and you are fully whole brain, then you are actually able to make the world always a better place, contributive response. You are always able to adapt and adjust, and you're not just rigid. Like we said, if you are too zebra, you're going to become rigid. You're going to want to just stick to the rules. You can't make a decision out of the rules. You can only copycat people. we've got to evolve out of that state. And that Z side is our task performance tools, if I can call it, whereas the ZOR is actually driving the bigger picture, the purpose, and eventually the magic happens where you never have to write a business plan or write your CV anymore. Your positive energy and your absolute state of total consciousness makes work come to you. The magic, the supernatural things start happening to you. So that part I want you to get so well, because if these sides are lopsided and they are not opening up, you fall back into your primitive brain, and that's what the PowerPoint is going to show very nicely, how you fall back into your one-dimensional. Now, your one-dimensional is your primitive brain that's lying here at the lower brain, and that one only can do, is a very stupid part of your brain. It can only fight and flight, and fight and flight, and fight and flight. It's about self-preservation. It's about impulse compulsions. Okay, so that then brings us to now knowing that is the DNA that we got. We can't help if we are more dominant in the Z side or more dominant in the ZOR side. But when we are adults, we can change it. And there's all the way, you're going to start seeing more and more how the statistics show how humans become more whole brain because 50% is that you must conceive it. And then you must believe it, and then you must talk it, and then you must walk it, and then you must achieve it. We call it CBTWA, conceive, believe, talk, walk, achieve. That whole process is the thing that must happen. But if you can't even conceive it, how can you believe it? And you've got to obviously go into an experience if you want to be convinced and you want to be believing things. And then your mouth will start talking automatically, your feet will start walking automatically, and you will get to achieve. And that is, my life is at all times, I have dedicated myself, if I have to teach people this, that I am the change that I want to see in the world. And that is what I am trying to get into your heads as change makers and as facilitators of change, that you are busy with that. So please, when you do a session, have your Hardwires. If you're going to start doing sessions and interpretations with other clients and with people, have your Hardwire sessions up somewhere behind the toilet, have it up somewhere against the wall, and be every day aware of what is your Hardwires and how, when you interpret how your Hardwires are actually affecting the way you interpret, because you want to interpret in a whole brain way. You want to interpret in a way that you're not biased, that you don't push your little Hardwires. And you're going to still see when we come to victim and when we come to all these other Hardwires, how it actually affects you as a facilitator of change as well. So the more you understand self, the more you are going to actually be very neutral, and you're going to bring your anxiety down so that it actually can bring their volition up. So that is the tool that you always have to have. When your anxiety is down, other people's volition, willpower to act is up. And that's the principle. You can't have high anxiety, and you can't have a squeaky like voice and a lot. You must listen to your voice. You must listen to your tone. And you've got to just be there to listen. So thank you very much. Let's go through the PowerPoint. So your optimization journey can only start once you become conscious of what holds your mind in captivity. And a successful interpretation coach has the ability to kick. In other words, that is what you are going to have to strive for, to be able to be doing it in such an enthusing way that you can crack people into consciousness by using this tool. Okay, today that's where we are in the training. So I made it in green, and you can see today. So yesterday last time we spoke up to the Z and the ZOR, and now we're getting to addiction, mental matters, and old-minded. ADD, addiction, mental matters, and old-minded. Okay, so let's go on, and that shows you the rest of the course. Okay, so we spoke about you have to become whole brain. So I went through this. There's one thing I want to mention there. Just go back there. We must, coaches must know themselves. They must know how to empathize and synthesize. Synthesize is to zoom out. It's the ZOR side. To synthesize, not to sympathize. When I studied to become an occupational therapist, they taught us about the difference between empathizing and sympathizing. And if you sympathize, I listen to a lot to especially English speaking people. They will very easily say, "Oh, shame, man. Oh, shame, man. Oh, shame, man. Shame what? Nothing is shame. Don't put shame on people. Don't use those words. Oh, shame, man." That is sympathize. That is like sis tog. Ag sis tog. Ag sis tog. We don't do that. We don't ag sis tog people. People are humans under construction, and you are just as much an ag sis tog. Don't use that word. It is it's a very much a type of a way that we are not. Empathizing is getting into human shoes and feeling their feeling and being part of them, but sympathizing can have a top-down type of parent-child, or I'm sorry for you type of thing. So don't let us do that type of behavior. Let us be just all under construction equally. Let us share our weaknesses with each other. Sometimes in a coaching session, when I see it's going rough in this coaching session and there's very deep pain, then that is the best time to actually be part of that pain and to say, listen, guys, we cannot help what happened on our primary level. We cannot help. We can't help for nature. We can't help for nurture. But we can now. This is the first day of the rest of your life. So we've got to get our mind right, and we've got to get rid of all our little thingies and have a very whole brain approach. There it also gives you about breathing. We spoke about that. Let's go to the hardwires. Next. So then, okay, so hardwires, as you know, the hardwires have symbols. So every symbol is there's going to eventually be apps, and a lot of those development will take place where when you write reports, you'll just move around icons and apps on these symbols. So you must please familiarize yourself with the colors and with the symbols, that you can, as a hardwire coach, understand that very well, and you can see it at a distance exactly what's that symbol and what it means, because at some point I'll show you what other things that this hardwires can do. We're developing card games for children, sessions, cards for executives in an office. When the executive team walks in, they can just gooi them with a hardwire card without saying a word when that manifests, so that you don't have to talk, but you can just show it, and then people become conscious, because everything is about making the human conscious of how that hardwire is now manifesting in front of us. So those are the icons. Next. Okay, so we have to, in some way, when you do a hardwire interpretation session, when you do it online for the general public, there's usually 30 to 40 minutes to do that. So you don't always have the time to explain the depth of the hardwire, but these are the type of information that needs to be shared in some way in between that you drop, which is that from birth, it forms every time that we're in a stage of fear, or where we experience a sense of I'm not safe, or I'm not okay, or I'm not worthy. And anxiety and trauma creates the scar tissue in the brain, creates the numbness or the unconsciousness, developing coping mechanisms. So hardwires actually creates you to be unconscious of the real you that is still not yet coming out. There's a very nice video, so I'm still waiting for the person that put up their hand to do the WhatsApp group. Then I'm going to send you a video of Dr. Gabor and how he shows how scar tissue forms in a little child when every time they have a feeling of I'm not safe and I'm not okay. Okay, so why is a hardwire not good for you? I'm going to send you guys this PowerPoint so that you all have these things and you can go read through it. But a hardwire is not good for you. Remember, your job now in this time is to try to crack this human into consciousness. If they don't even buy into hardwires, if they don't even believe, they'll think it's rubbish or something because they try to shoot it off. A narcissistic, the more the ego is damaged, any form of narcissism, covert and overt narcissism, which we'll still discuss, will shoot it off. They will reject this because they don't want anyone to know who they really are, because they're living a false self. So they can't handle. So anyone that can't handle these things, they are living this false self. They don't want to know anything about the inside of themselves. And you must realize also, the more Z you are, the more you're going to rather want to be involved in tasks. Let's just rather get into the tasks. Let's rather do the task for the day. Don't tell me about me. Don't come too close to me, because remember, Zor cares about the relational things and the deeper things. And the Z side just wants to work with tasks. So you will now already experience, if you are more Z, you don't like this. It's not like I don't want to be involved in this. It's too close to home. So if you look at why is a hardwire not good for you, we must try to get it over into your client. So default stuck thought patterns, contaminated thoughts, double-minded. Go check exact on the internet how terrible is this whole world of ours that's getting more and more double-minded. Lack of discernment, inability to judge, misperception, open to deceit. If you have a hardwire like an e-lock, you are totally, like a puppet in life, and you get, just everyone can lie to you, and the world is just more and more full of lies. So and then we get derailed, we get contaminated, we get derailed and we don't go on our journey with the whole time just derailing our paths. So, and we don't get to the bottom line of the truth. Hardwire squeeze life out of humans. A hardwire takes the glow out of your eyes. You don't even know how much glow you have. So there's so much. Oh, there it all goes. Okay. So go and read that one. There's so many more reasons that you must bring into your session, where you can gooi it in some ways where it's not too much information. You slip it in ways when you are talking to your client. Okay. And why is hardwires more important than CV? That is something we must go think about. For the employer to know that you are paying this person a salary, you basically paying for 80% hardwires and for 20% what's on the CV. And we are starting to give more and more examples to prove it over and over, because that hardwires that you have will have a multiplier effect. It will create damage, we call it collateral damage in the organization. It will bring staff into lower morale that's working with you. It will create more work for the HR manager. It would create, I can't tell you the multiplier effect that a hardwire has. So your CV can be so fantastic, but let me tell you, your hardwires are much more important. And that's the stuff that drives that competency. Okay, so let's go on. The other words that we like to use is to say to everyone, we are all under construction. This is your hardwires now, but today is the first day of the rest of your life. Maybe your hardwires, look at that graph. It's a lot of them in the red, and the rest are in the yellow, and the others are in the green. So they are all jumping up inside that human, those hardwires. But it's about starting somewhere. It's never, never, never too late to start. And as long as you are constructively constructing, not staying in that state, you've got to do something. Next.
Can I ask a question, Vivian?
Yep.
So if you've got you don't have anything in the red, is it possible to develop hardwires then?
You are always, the more unconscious you are, the more chance that you're just always going to develop hardwires. Your life is going to go up and down with hardwires. If you follow, let's say, every year your life, and you do a hardwire assessment, you're going, depending on what humans you are dealing with, what ecosystems you are in. And if you are unconscious of self, you are just going to hardwire. You are just going to hardwire because you don't know what you don't know about how you're behaving and why you're behaving like that. So yes, but once you get
to the consciousness, so once you gain consciousness and are able to maintain consciousness, then that's more chances of you being able to have hardwires that are on the lower radar. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you remove your hardwires. You totally remove. If you want to see pictures, because I can only talk for myself, because our hardwire system is confidential, and that's what this point is. So I can't just go and show you people's hardwires reports. But if there's people that's willing to do that, you must see how radically, when a human is conscious of their hardwires, how their whole personality, they reinvent themselves. You become a whole different human being. And you are always aware of how you respond, and sometimes you are so needy, maybe for maybe a new husband or something, and then you step into that trap, unless if you become, you start understanding how to set up your boundaries and say, I cannot go and put my pull on the same yoke with somebody who is unconscious of hardwires. How could you be in a relationship with somebody who's just living life with me, myself, and my hardwires, thinking it's his personality? And you can see every single hardwire playing out in that human every single day. I mean, it's crazy. You won't be able to maintain a relationship anymore. It's
Hi,
when
Viv,
you're conscious.
can I ask a question as well?
Yes.
Please. How do you help a person, or maybe you're in an organization, you work together, or you are in a relationship with this person, but they are totally in denial, and you are very aware of your consciousness, you are an aware person, but this person is in total denial of their of how they behave, how they they just come with laughter all the time when there's nothing to be laughed at, and all of that. How do you help that situation?
Well, exactly this. We are exactly working and constantly developing tools to crack humans into consciousness. It is the biggest problem. We've got people in government and in presidential positions. We've got people in senior positions. They are totally unconscious of self. And then that whole division is suffering, and there's the whole time that collateral damage. Families, the people who are leading the family are totally in unconsciousness. So there is nothing more important than cracking into consciousness, because when you get to your moment of truth, you can start the journey of change, and then a human is more humble to be willing to listen. And that's where the learning process is supposed to start, because that's where it's ripe, that it's a virgin brain to want to learn. So how do you do that? You have to get the humans to undergo something like this. And that's why we are so excited when corporate is doing this. Corporate is implementing this more and more and more and more. Nobody then gets appointed anymore if they didn't do their hardwires. They would have never done it if there wasn't a carrot that said, oh, I'm going to get a job and I'm going to get a salary. Now that is a prerequisite before they start the job. Now it cracks them into consciousness. They didn't know what happened to them. Suddenly they start realizing, and that whole denial breaks, and the human starts realizing, hey, I better own this. I better know that there's something that I must deal with. And that's
because I'm damaging myself.
Yeah, we've got to push this now into the world. I'm telling you, everywhere. I mean, if Mr. Masibani, that's our HR, there's no ways he will touch a human, even close by, if we don't first have done the hardwire assessment, because it cracks you into consciousness. And maybe it is a forced cracking because he's doing it because of the job. He didn't do it because he thinks he needs to change. Relationships, that's why we have these couple retreats. When they come on the couple retreat, they first have to do their hardwires. If you want to come on any course, you have to first do your hardwires. And if you bring those things in, now a person is conscious, and when you start training him or start working, now suddenly you can work with them. And there's radical change. Radical. So that's the only thing I can say. You must try to trip them or fop them or whatever into doing their hardwires, because it's an independent human that will online talk to you and that will give you an interpretation without being judgmental, without giving a interpretation and sounding as if you're smart. It just helps you to show you what you filled in. You filled that in. You did that. And we're just reflecting back what you filled in. And that's where the journey can start. That's the way we can get the journey to start. And the sooner we get children into this process, the sooner children actually totally get it and they can see when they get bullied and all these things. It's so easy with children, but adults, especially when they're in power positions, they think they know, but they don't even know that they don't know. They're total oblivious about self. We have to get that right. We have to, in some way, go on some cool, just weekend away, and then it forms part of it, and that way you get it. Okay, so.
Sorry,
Yes.
can I just mention something?
Hello, Parmas.
Hi, Eva.
Good to you. Miss you.
Feeling a bit better. I had a bit of a bad bout of bronchitis. That's why my voice is not too grand. Well, what you mentioned is quite important, because like quite often we want to try and train somebody else and improve somebody else, but we're not even aware of our own faults and our own blind spots. So, I think it's important that you try and work on yourself first and fix yourself before you try and sort of work with somebody else and fix them. For me, I think my turning point was when someone sat down with me and said, listen, these are your blind spots. And you can either take that conversation one or two ways, where you look at it, okay, fine, I'm not going to listen to this guy who's talking absolute nonsense. Or you're going to say, hey, listen, let me hear what he's saying and try and improve myself. So I think, quite often we so focus on changing the world and changing something else, but we fail to see the issues with ourselves.
Exactly. Thanks for that. Exactly. We don't have a clue, especially when us that's working in this field of human development, and teachers. When I try to get teachers and educators to come on these courses, they think they know everything. In the meantime, they don't even know what they don't know, because the way that the world is teaching us is knowledge, and you think you know because you have knowledge. But the only knowledge that is really going to set you free is knowing thyself. And that is the thing. And it's an ongoing journey. It never stops. I'm telling you, it never stops. It is just an amazing, amazing journey, because I'm telling you, you overcome totally your fear, which is in your primitive brain. You overcome your hardwires that are linked to your primitive brain, like addictions and things like that. You start winning it. This whole thing of setting yourself a New Year's resolution, it's a joke. I'm just laughing at all these magazine articles and stuff, until you don't understand what blocks you, what really and how it works and how deep it lies. And this is now helping you to see that green, yellow and red of the thing, and see actually how deep this is. And the penny takes long to drop. It takes long to drop. But let's go on this journey. Let me invite you to not quit, and to go deeper in your own journey whilst you are trying it out on others, because it's very nice also to then start experiencing it, how it plays out in humans around you all the time. Okay, next. So we know the red is the 5-year process and the yellow is 24 months ongoing, not stopping. Okay, so what we would then say is Hardwires is really just it's just starting your journey of deeper introspection and self-discovery. And you've now filled in the assessment, and we really do hope, so that's what I always say, I really hope that you were totally honest when you filled in. That was just you and the computer. There was no human with you there. That computer just calculates the things and you get your score. So I really hope this whole assessment, you can't say discredit it, you filled it in. And yes, the truth is we're going to still go deeper when it comes to narcissism, how narcissists will always have a false self because they don't even know how they are, because they can only see other humans. Everything is always, oh, you are the bad one, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, and how they can't actually properly fill it in. But the computer has now become sophisticated to see when there's we call it the picture perfect, but we'll get into that when we do narcissism. All I'm doing as an interpretation coach is to reflect your truth back to you, nothing else. And the next step is, now you know that you still don't know enough about yourself, and you have to own it. You have to own it. And for you to own it, you'll have to start responding. I can't pull and push you. You've now come to a moment where you can get the truth. So you've got to do something about it. my session with you is only to interpret. So if you want to change, you've got to talk, and you've got to toy, and you've got to say help, and you've got to read motivational books, and you've got to ask, because what do they always say? Why do certain people not get stuff? Because they never ask. They never ask. The more you try and the more you ask, the more you are going to get. The more you knock, the more the doors are going to be opened up. And that's what you must encourage them in that process. Okay, who's there, Tessa? You are asking
Hi,
me.
Vivian.
Hello.
Hi, Vivian. Hi. I have a question.
Yes.
I tried to be I thought I was being as honest as I possibly could in the assessments, but how do I know that I was really being honest?
Okay, that is good. I'm so happy. Thanks for that question. So the principle that you must understand about Hardwires, it went through a lot of scrutinization and statistical analyzing, and you'll see some questions are asked in the negative and others in the positive. And there's 3 or 4 different ways that the same truth is being asked in a way that we can get a good idea. But you must realize that a human is a human being. And you might be in such a state, most of us, when you start the process, is in such a state of unconsciousness of self that you actually don't totally know. So that is true. So your hardwire it will show. It could show maybe you totally thought, no, but I'm actually not so bad. So that's why we've got sometimes, always, and never. Then we'll say, oh, I just do it sometimes, just sometimes. So that's fine, because it still makes a profile of the trending hardwire. So in your first hardwire assessment, it's not cast in stone that is totally the truth, but it is perfectly enough to have a hardwire interpretation session. As I'm saying, hardwire is just as a hardwire session assessment is just a journey. It's starting a journey of introspection. So even if you have been lying, or even if you've been a little bit higher or lower, it doesn't matter. It is going to show on the graph. It is going to show something, and it's going to start a process. And hopefully you are going to wake up. They usually say only 1 out of every 8 people become conscious and start the journey of change. So 1 out of every 8 people that do this Hardwires will then be those ones that will take it further. And we just need one. I mean, I'm part of a global movement for change makers, and they say that you need one change maker to change at least 1,000 people sustainably forever in your life. So we're only interested in any case in those 1 out of 8. Because we know they are the ones that's going to be volitionized and ready, and they're going to start moving and changing, and they are going to create a multiplier effect. So it's a good enough conversation, even if it's not 100% perfect. Okay. Then
thank you, Vivian.
Thank you. Then we have to touch upon the ER when we have these conversations. We have to talk about, we have to some way mention to this human in front of us, because this human maybe has never even thought about what is the end result. What is an optimum human? What could that be? They just think maybe I'm just surviving and I'm just trying to just get a roof over my head, and they have never even thought about the depth of the end result, starting with the end before the beginning. And therefore we must bring in a bit of those conversations in some way, that it just starts triggering. It starts just putting some light on in terms of thinking, but where am I going with my life? Where am I going to end? Am I going to become the most adaptive, contributive, responsive human? I mean, I thought it's having a smart car and a house. I mean, that's only halfway. And then you've got to throw those things out and get to a higher level of responsiveness if you want to make it. So we've got to just start those conversations. And it starts with a willingness. So we're trying to create a will. We're trying to up the volition, the willpower of the human to want to think about himself and wanting to think about his own change. We are trying to get to a point where that human is willing to give up his pride, because pride is the thing that hides the real you. A man is not who he is, it is who he hides. So pride is the thing that hides the false human, and we want to get that human into humility, that they can make themselves vulnerable and feel it's okay to fail forward. It's okay. It's okay. Don't try to keep on self-preserving. The only way you're going to change is you open up your wounds and you start building, to that state. We also want humans not to run away. We don't want them to flight. And then we want humans to conceive the truth, not just to reject it and discard it and devalue things, but that they can start thinking, because a person who rejects something is a non-thinker. Anyone that just discards and rejects is somebody who hasn't gone deep enough. It's a person who is not willing to apply their mind, to switch on their brain, and to go deep and to go and search for the truth no matter what the cost. Next. So that is your A to B scales, your 7 levels. And if you look at that and you look at the normal human in our programs, we find that most humans regarding their own self-development are between A0. It means they are non-responsive. They are totally blind and oblivious and non-responsive. They're eating, drinking and whatever, and because they think tomorrow they die. They haven't even thought about what is this capacity that they have. They think the grease has got something to do with it. It's got nothing. It's got to do with volitional capacity to drive those knowledge. So most humans get stuck in life are between A0 and A2. And A2 is where they become conscious of their incompetency. And that is the sad part of it, is then after that there's no programs, there's no nothing that helps them to really to buddy system them and to crutch them for competence so that they can now get to that next level. So most humans pivot between A0 and A2, which is the saddest thing you can imagine for humankind. Next. Okay, so then every sphere of life. So if we talk about every sphere of life, in everything we occupy ourselves with, whether it is our sleep patterns, whether it is our personal sphere, which is our grooming, our interpersonal relationships from babies to colleagues to love relationships to everything. And all those spheres of life, the hardwires block the OI levels. So that previous slide that showed the OI levels, so we never get to higher levels and to real competency levels in any of these things easily, and because of these hardwires that's blocking it. Next. Okay, so we know it's nature versus nurture. Let's go to the next one. And that is now, we know the first one, unconducive parenting. Next one, I've discussed it. The next one is abuse. There you can see the icons. You must recognize them. The next one is Z and Zo. Yeah. And then let me just show you this one about Z and Zo. So this is a very nice slide that I think must become like a movable type of slide where you can move the lines. Now, if a person is too Z, then the block of the Z side is going to grow, and then the Zo side is very much smaller. And then the person is hardwired because he's warped in his reasoning style. Or if the Zo is too much strong and there's not enough Z structure and systematic step-by-step sequential type of intelligences, then the person is going to be too much Zo, and then it is going, and we're going to get to see exactly how that influences, but it's a hardwire. If any of those things are too Z or too Zo, then the lower brain, which is that one-dimensional side, which is the bottom part, is going to just go bigger, and then you just live on your primitive brain. You just live a life of addictions and stuff like that is affecting your life, and we're going to now get into that. Next. There, that is a little tool that I'll send you that can give you just more information on the WhatsApp group. For the WhatsApp group maker, please come to me afterwards. Next. Okay, so if you are 2Z, then you are going to always zoom on the smaller picture. And then when it comes to anything about humans, you're going to judge, you're going to criticize, you're going to condemn, you're going to make people feel they are bad, and you're going to break down self-esteem. So Z brain is only the Z, or the Z tool of the brain, the Z component is only supposed to work with tasks and never apply your Z side to humans, because then you'll just criticize and judge, and you'll just see the faults and things in humans, which is supposed to be your Zor side, where the empathy and all the relational intelligence works, where you can see the bigger picture, and where you're not going to just go into zoom in and wanting to slaughter this woman because she did some sin, but you did 10 times worse around the other bush. Okay, next. Okay, yes, and I just wanted to mention here that I'm sure that, like I said, the Z-brain dominant, you like more two-dimensional things. So you are now enjoying that I'm giving you a two-dimensional session. And I'm just warning you, I am a provocateur. Sometimes I'm going to put you into three-dimensional stuff and into other ways of teaching, and I'm going to change the learning style the whole time. But at this point in time, every now and then, I'm going to put it back to two-dimensional death by PowerPoint, so that you can intellectualize instead of internalize and implementation. So this is going to help you, that you at least have that two-dimensional notes that you can also work from in your journey to get from two-dimensional to three-dimensional. Next. Okay, and then if a Zor brain is too Zor, then they are throwing their ideas all over the show, and they're just oozing out new ideas and synthesizing bigger picture, connecting dots between things, which is incredible, amazing. But if they don't have enough Z, they are not going to bring those things to task completion point. They always say when a person is too Zor, they do 70% of their work amazingly successful, and the last 30% they get bored, because then they start generating a new idea, and then somebody else must finish their dirty work for them and get themselves to task completion. So you're going to see why is it important that we also have to work together in teams, where the Z and the Zors have to work together, so that we can bring magic out into the world and not oppose each other and misunderstand each other, but work collectively together. So so now if you look on this slide, you're going to see that the Z side is now going to create secondary hardwires, and that's going to be from next session. You're going to see the secondary hardwires that the Z brain develops, because it is a hardwire. It's going to create warped new hardwires. And the Zor brain, if it's to Zor, how it's going to create new Zor hardwires, and that we'll get to from next session. Okay, so now I'm touching upon three hardwires that are actually, you have to make a note here, and you mustn't become confused. These hardwires are now discussed as primary hardwires, but you must check if the internet is going to go off. Are you hearing me? Because our power is now failing on us here. So are you there? Just put up your hand, somebody.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So addiction. Now these three hardwires: addiction and mental matters and OLM. They are actually tertiary hardwires. They are the hardwires that makes you to really to really not get ever to your greatness, because they are holding you in bondage. So let's call them the bondage hardwires. I like the word fraught. I don't know what's the English word for that. They make you fraught so that you never really can get anywhere in life. It's going to just hold you. It's just going to hold you. And those three hardwires are actually tertiary hardwires. But the reason why I'm starting with them is because we are now still discussing the nature, in other words, what you inherited, that is the primary level. So when you are doing an assessment and you look at somebody's report, then you have to just ask these questions before you go on. You must just ask, was there anybody in your family line that had any form of addictions, like any type of addictions? Now let's just quickly look at what addictions are. Addictions is not only the obvious ones like the drugs and the smoking and the drinking. It is sugar is one of your biggest addictions. It is making on cellular level, it's making your cells drunk. So by the way, and that's why you get addicted. And that's why I'm still fat, because I'm having an addiction of sweet things that I inherited from my Afrikaans father. and it is an addiction. So don't look at addictions as if one is worse than the other. It is something that the primitive brain holds that whole thing, because it says, I must have. Oh, where's a sweet thing? Or where's something that I can smoke? Or where's something that I can, oh, I'm not coping well. Oh, let's just have a, where's that red wine? It is that I must, that impulse, that compulsion. So stop judging humans around that. It is a difficult thing. And the problem is that it's more difficult if we inherited it through our DNA. And that is why I'm discussing it at this point in time, but it's also going to cause your ondergang, your downfall in life. It's going to cause you that you will never even know what amazing human you are, because you'll just be caught up in your addictions all the time. And that's the problem. You grow up and then you are having a predisposition to be addicted to stuff. You've got this need for, I must, and then you become a gambler, or you become you just find yourself the whole time in these things that is addictive in nature, and you don't know why. And very likely it was inherited, and you actually got born with that predisposition and that disadvantage, which is something we must identify, so that we can very quickly see it in the whole, how the pattern plays out. So that's why we must ask that question. The next one is mental matters. So now mental matters is also something that you can inherit, and I am always making myself vulnerable to tell you that I had a mother, and still has that mother, that is the most amazing, wonderful woman. But she is in her previous generation, they went through massive traumatic experiences as a family, and she became very anxious. And then her older sister was also teasing her, and with gogos and with spiders and stuff, and making her scared, and she became a scared type of human. And she transferred that into the next generation, into me. I transferred it to my next generation, and then only when I started clicking exactly what exactly this is, I can now understand what happens, how it plays out from a neuroscience point of view, and I could actually work to overcome that mental matters, which is anxiety. Now, mental matters is you're not mentally cuckoos. You are our mental faculty. Mr. Masibani's mental faculty is his brain. It's his mental capacity. And if you have stress, you get exposed to anxiety. You start getting anxious, and fears and anxiety is part of the same family, and phobias and all those things. So anything, if you have any of those things, people, make that list and realize there's a big problem. You have got a primitive brain anxiety issue that you can't overcome yet. And it's not okay. It's not okay to be scared of spiders, and it's not okay to be scared of riding a horse. We are the top of the food chain. We are not supposed to be scared. There's something that causes that. And the problem is, the more you are Zorbrain dominant, the more you are going to be able to see, you're going to perceive, your perception is much stronger because you're emotionally intelligent. So you're going to feel other people's anxieties, and then it's going to make you even more anxious. It's going to affect you. And that's why you become a rescuer and want to rescue people, as your anxiety. And we have to see if it was inherited or if it wasn't inherited. So that is why we have to ask that question. And the one question you must ask, is anybody in your family aggressive? Because aggression is the highest form of anxiety. It's just the flight response of the primitive brain. So the fight or the flight response is just the signs of anxiety. That's all it is. So very often they'll say, no, there's no anxiety in my family. But if you start asking the symptomatic, and we'll go a little bit deeper later when we do the tertiary hardwires. The third one is then the OLM. And OLM stands for old-minded. Now, old-minded doesn't mean you are old-fashioned. Yeah, you can possibly also, it could also make you, that could be a symptom of old-mindedness, but it's not what it means. Old-minded means that you are feeling old before your time because of fatigue. Now, we've got to find out if old-minded symptomatic stuff that comes from your It could be a neurological, it could be a vascular, it could be immunological, psychological, hormonal, inflammatory, and those type of things. Post-traumatic stress, psychosis, dementia, anything that caused maybe the previous generation or the generation before was exposed to childhood abuse and hurt. And then excessive adrenaline gets released inside your bloodstream, and your it starts affecting your adrenal glands and your lymph nodes and all those type of areas. And that is now, they're now proving, specifically now, if you look at also fibromyalgia, that is now, and immunological diseases and muscular diseases, how they are now saying, oh, it's coming from the DNA. It's very likely it comes from the DNA. Then you go back, you wonder why people now are having this massive outbreak in those diseases that was never something from the past. It's because it heaped up all those adrenaline and all those weakening of those things, and now it comes in the package deal into the next generation, and then you are having that predisposition, and then you have got a weakened immunological system, and then it starts getting the better of you. So that could also come from nature. And I think what we are busy doing is defining very specific questions that we'll give over to Hardwire interpretation coaches to ask, so that you can pinpoint, aha, this person has already inherited it from the previous generation. So that is primary. Then in that case, it's what we would call primary. Okay, and that brings us to the end of today's session. And when I see you again, I'm going to start with the secondary hardwires, and that's where it becomes interesting, because those are the hardwires that is existing in you, in your behavior and in your choice making when you are now an adult, and what is now manifesting. Okay, thank you very much. Any question? Gwen? Shoot.
The power window.
But it's still on. Is it not still on?
I'm saying they raised their hands. That
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I see. Okay.
Hello?
It seems. Any question? A last question? A pressing one.
It wasn't a question. I actually put my hand up when you asked if we were out there. But as long as you're asking about questions, I want to do this hardwire thing. How do we actually do it? Can we just go, I want to do this? It sounds so awesome.
Well, you mean the assessment or the revolution journey? The revolution journey is the one where you have a coach, and where that helps you to break.
Okay, the assessment. I haven't even done the assessment yet. So
yes. So your assessment, you go on, you send an email to discover@hardwires.co.za, and then the link gets sent to you, and then you start filling in that questionnaire, and it's going to take you like 2.5 to 3 hours. And so please get yourself a quiet place where you can be totally honest and think about it, and then it's going to spit out the results for you.
Thank you.
Good. Albie.
Hi, sorry, I know everybody wants to run. Vivian, how long after we've completed the assessment questionnaires do we get the response back?
Well, it comes, I think, within less than 5 minutes. The computer generates it, so it's fast. And then from there, then it requests you to make an appointment. You must respond. You know, we don't believe in anybody who gets pulled and pushed. It tells you must now set up the appointment, and then some hardwire coach is then linked with you, and then you have that session where they interpret. All they're going to do is interpret, and that's what you're learning to do now. Yeah. I'm
asking because I completed it last week, and I haven't had any response back yet. So is there someone I can ask to maybe have a look?
Yeah. Well, I can check. I can check also for you now. I can check on the system, but yeah. So I can check. But you can also just on that Discover send an email back and say my report, because sometimes there's a duplication on somebody's email address, then it spits it out, or sometimes you missed one question or something, and then it's asking you to go back and to fill in that question.
Okay, super. I'll do that. Thank you so much. This is amazing. I'm loving every minute so far.
Thank you. Me too. Who else? Gugu. Was there a Gugu? No, Gugu disappeared on us. I think our time is up until we see each other again. Thursday, same time.
Thank you,
Bye.
Vivian.
See you Thursday, Viv. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
Viv,
Yeah.
Bye.
can I ask you offline? Can I ask a burning question
Well,
offline?
you can do it, yeah, off on, doesn't matter.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.